Okay, I should be good. Huh. Hello? Did I lose everybody here?
I'm still here.
We're
Okay.
here.
Okay. Can you check the stream just to see? Because once I clicked the title, it went crazy.
It
All right.
looks like it's still hosting.
Perfect.
Yes,
No.
I'm seeing us live
Perfect.
with 6 viewers. Still says ALA exclamation point, but
Yeah, for some reason I clicked the title to try to change it and then just brought up High Stakes Gaming Channel, which I don't want to see. I mean, I like the guy, but
but
I'm seeing his video and our chat.
yeah, it's weird.
I'm not seeing any video. I'm just seeing the backstage logo myself.
Well, I'm going to refresh then and see if that helps.
Same. Little technical difficulties, chat. Edit. Bam. CWF backstage pass 2 4
So while G is busy, Ellie, now is the time I can explain Kingdom Hearts lore to you.
Don't you dare! I'm going to be playing the game.
So what I understand about Kingdom Hearts is there's light and there's darkness. The
Yes.
light and the darkness exist in people's hearts. When you lose your heart, your body becomes a nobody and your heartless, but not for
Yes.
everybody, because a bunch of the characters are actually derivative of other characters, but not necessarily the ones you'd think about, because there are two that look identical, and one of them is named Roxas, and he doesn't have anything to do with the other guy.
He does have something to do with the other guy.
Oh boy.
So here's the problem with, you've probably watched a bunch of explainer videos.
First off, just to let you know, hello there, chat. Welcome to the CWF Backstage Podcast. We interrupt this wonderful discussion of Kingdom Hearts to bring you an episode that we've been long waiting for. Yes, we have taken quite a break in January due to multiple shows, multiple meetings, but we're proud to reset our schedule in this our first episode of February. Everybody, yay!
Yeah, Valentine's Day episode. CWF is for lovers.
Oh, if this is the Valentine's Day episode, then are we going to read sappy poetry to each other?
I mean, we are talking about one of our top loves in life, wrestling.
It's true.
Once again, my name is Gerardo Paz, one of the hosts of Backstage Pass and co-founders of CWF, and with me is my wonderful co-host.
Hi, I'm Ellie Devine. I'm a co-host now.
Yes, Ellie was with us. She made her debut with our last episode. I forgot the exact date, but it was with Ryan. It was a fantastic episode, and we are very excited to bring you our latest guest. Why don't you introduce yourself to us?
My name is Jack Royce. You may know me as Detective Gumshoe, or the guy you bought a CWF t-shirt from, depending on which show we're at. My Twitter is @Jack Royce, if you want to follow me. I have no idea why you want to follow me, but and I'm here because I'm ready to nerd out on a slightly higher plane of nerdery regarding wrestling this recording.
Wow, higher plane. You sound like an Ava fan already.
Oh, so now we're going to talk about Ava.
No,
right to
no, I don't want to open up the can of worms.
It's coming to Netflix. I am ready for all the new hot takes.
I am so excited. I've waited my entire life for this.
Yes.
I'll finally be able to watch Ava, now understanding, having unstrung my own, hang-ups involving, gender and sexuality, and how that approaches to Ava is going to be really interesting to watch, as opposed to just being a weird 15-year-old.
You're going to understand Shinji so much better now.
I remember watching Ava and then going to church after a marathon and going, church makes more sense now.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but today is going to be a very productive episode, hopefully. there's a lot has happened in the wrestling world, and more specifically,
Yes.
we get to cover an aspect of wrestling that is not normally discussed in the fandom, which is the academic and, would you say, theatrical merits of it, Jack?
Oh, absolutely. I would say definitely. Wrestling is a performing art. This is not new. Uh, Mike Quackenbush said that in 2015, and he wasn't the first to say it either. But looking at wrestling as performance, I think, has become more of a thing within wrestling within recent years to the benefit of wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just being external observation.
And this is really great because both Ellie and I come from theatrical backgrounds.
Yes, indeed.
And
Though different realms of theater.
so we get this is the episode where the theater geeks take over.
I can already
Oh,
smell the
yeah.
3 a.m. Denny's.
3 a.m. Denny's and making sure you thank tech. Always thank tech.
Always thank tech.
Oh my
Okay.
I've
gosh.
done more tech than acting work, so yeah, thank me.
So let's go ahead and jump back into the previous question I asked, which Ellie was very generous in reminding me of because I forgot, which was your up to 3 horribly bad CWF entry ideas.
So, as a recap from last week, this was actually our guest Ryan's idea, and it was inspired by a discussion a bunch of us had after Sac Anime at Johnny Rockets when we were. Was it Johnny Rockets?
No, it
Where
was
did we end up
Mel's
going?
original
Mel's.
diner.
That's what it was. The other one.
Oh, Mel's
And
great. I love Mel's.
so we were sitting at Mel's, we were stuffing our faces, and this came up like CWF ideas that would never go over well, that were not feasible, that were really funny, but just didn't have that je ne sais quoi. Like terrible ideas.
Now, before we started recording, the 3 of us were already kind of sharpening our blades, going, "I got the worst one," and hopefully we could get some sort of either vote or agreement from the green room and those listening, like which one's the most bad.
Yes, so when you hear a particularly awful idea, I don't know, just repeat the quote that Daniel said, which was, "Jesus Christ, this is a lot of ham."
Twice. It's a double quote. He said it 2 times, 5 minutes apart from each other, as he attempted to attack the world's biggest ham steak.
And Daniel is our Skeletor, and Jotaro, and
Yami
so many
Yugi.
great characters. Yugi, just for those who are not in the know.
Okay, so who wants to go first?
I would like to go last because mine are exceptionally powerful.
All
Yes,
right.
I agree. G, why don't you go first? You said you only had one out of three.
I only had one, so my answer is going to be really short. And this one idea comes with a backstory. It was at ALA, I want to say 2 to 3 years ago. I was in my hotel room, and Robert was there. Robert plays Freaky Fish Guy. And Robert talked about how he looks very similar to Efren. Efren plays Little Mac. And if you see the two together, they have a strong family resemblance without being family. And one of the in-jokes of CWF is there's a lot of, I want to say, phantom siblings. A lot of people who kind of look like each other and even go as far as to get their names mixed up. So Efren looks like Robert. Daniel Skeletor looks a lot like Alex Phoenix Wright. And then, of course, you got the Farnsworth brothers, but they're actually brothers. Anyway, the idea was to have Robert enter as Little Mac, but he would be like a really cheap Russian knockoff Little Mac. Like, "Hello, I am Tiny Mo. I am going to have great punching power, and I would kick." And it would just be this horrible Little Mac impression. And then every episode, he would come up as a knockoff version of another wrestler. Like we would have Yagi Yogi, the emperor of entertainment, which would be Yugi Moto, and it's led to this horrible fantasy booking where these Russian knockoffs would infiltrate the CWF and change it from the Cosplay Wrestling Federation to the Communist Wrestling Federation.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
already down with being in the Communist Wrestling Federation, just FYI.
Yeah, non-ironically.
And it would enter in this like big invasion angle where Efren, the real Little Mac, fights the fake Little Mac, and I just said to myself, why did I make this up? Why? This is horrible. So that's mine.
It's a pretty strong opener.
Yeah, strong opener. So to TLDR version, cheap Russian knockoffs. Or, I mean, we could even update it to, like, bad Filipino bootlegs of versions of CWF wrestlers.
Yeah. All right, I guess if Jack's going last, that puts me next, huh?
Yes.
So this first one I actually came up with while talking to some of the guys at DaiCon, which is a show that we're going to be doing pretty soon. I don't know if that's our next. Is it our next show?
It's going to be our next show, and we're really excited about it.
So DaiCon is a one-day convention in UC Davis's anime club facilities, I guess. So they got to expand into more of the campus, and it's going to be a great one-day con. We're kind of a headlining event for them, and I just came from. But we were joking about how I could reasonably. I remember now. Sorry, this has been inarticulate. But Ryan was talking about how there are actually 5 main characters, 4 women, and then there's the city. And this is a popular theory that was also used in an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine to great comedic effect. And I said, oh, yes, I should be Samantha Jones, which is a terrible idea because not only do I look nothing like Kim Cattrall, but I'm about 30 years younger than she is at this point.
Even better start.
And she is a very sexually explicit character, so I'd pretty much only be able to do this at 18 plus cons and events. And furthermore, Sex in the City is old and dated and passé and has not aged well. So,
I'm sorry. It's just, would it be a tag team where someone enters as Sex and other one is entered as the City?
Well, obviously, I would be Sex because I am insatiable, having slept with most of the men in New York City, and none of them could satisfy me.
I can't stop. Okay, I can see defeat. Your idea is worse than Sex.
And that's only my first idea.
Oh, God. I can't. I might have to tap.
Speaking of tag teams, actually, the second one I mentioned in chat when everybody was talking about Evangelion recently, and so yes, we are bringing Evangelion back up again already. I've been cosplaying Misato Katsuragi since I was 13 years old, and I realized the other day that I'm still not as old as she is in the show, which means I can keep cosplaying her indefinitely. That's my opinion. But I thought it would be so fabulous to tag team with a Shinji, where literally the whole shtick is Shinji, get in the effing robot, get in the effing ring. And Shinji proceeds to just have a total disassociative mental breakdown in which he talks about the facade of it all and his identity and basically just gets really metaphysical and cries, and I proceed to go, Shinji, get in the effing ring.
You know what would save this idea? Is if we managed to turn off all the lights in the room except one spotlight.
Well, if Shinji ever gets into the ring, we can all surround him and clap and go, Omedetou, Omedetou.
I can't. No. I just want to take a quick break and highlight Daniel's answer. Daniel writes, my worst CWF entry is Pepsi Man, who comes out as a super babyface and hands out single bottomless Pepsi. Later, I'd rip off the blue silver suit to reveal the red silver stuff and call myself Comrade Coke with a Russian accent.
This goes along very well with G's idea.
Yes.
The Russian communist knockoff.
Russian communist rush. Da, Zoya the Destroyer, one chair for everyone.
Oh God. Anytime we get to bring up Glow, I'm gonna be so thrilled. Actually, that's a good segue into my third idea and final idea. I don't know if this is the best and most viable or the worst because of how impractical it would be. But are either of you familiar with the show Big Mouth? It's a Netflix original cartoon.
Hormone monsters.
I want to be Connie, the hormone monster.
Whoa, time out. That's a good idea.
Except for the body paint and the faux fur.
I mean, it's already been done when Robert was Blanca, but like that idea.
And I'm gonna learn from him.
That's a good idea. It's like 5 shades above, like 5 levels higher of intensity and sexuality as Catwoman. That's legitimately good.
That's where I would go with it too, but also more absurd. So I'd get out there and be like, oh my God, there's so much testosterone in this room. My little girl hormones are going crazy. And then I would proceed to say a bunch of really inappropriate things, mostly in the form of innuendo, so that I could continue to use it at all ages conventions. But
you're selling this too well. I think it might have like knocked off like one bad idea, so you got like one good one. Yeah, you got one good one over me. One bad one over me.
All right. Well, Jack, bring us home.
All right, Jack. I am getting my face palm ready in anticipation.
Okay. Hold that thought, actually. We are getting an incoming transmission from Rachel in our private Facebook chat room saying, hold on, gotta restart the internet. So I guess that comes...
The internet hasn't started. I'm back.
Yes! I don't have to vamp.
Sorry I missed all of your ideas, and I hope I don't repeat them, Ellie, but...
Doubtful.
Doubtful. Very doubtful.
Okay. So, I assume that you have given all of your...
Oh, yes.
All right,
now is your time to shine, baby.
Here's the recap. Communist / bootleg knockoffs for me. Ellie had a character from... wait, what was the character from Sex and the City?
Samantha Jones.
Samantha Jones from Sex and the City. Idea 1. Idea 2 from her was Masato and Shinji, but there is no real promo. It's just Shinji having an existential crisis and not getting in the ring. And the third one was the hormone monster from Big Mouth, which I think is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, that one's not bad at all. Like, it's disgusting in some sort of, like, primal way, but that's by design.
Yeah, it's dumb.
I mean, I will clarify that this is Connie, the hormone monster, the lady one, so she's tolerable compared to the others.
Yes.
All right, Jack.
Okay, so I have had too many stupid CWF ideas over the years, so I'm not going to recap like Gumshoe Go on Chapo or Metaton, but it's actually Metatron from Shin Megami Tensei. This is all new material.
Oh, yeah.
2 of which are for the theoretical and probably going to be theoretical forever tag team division of CWF. One of which was I was actually inspired by a discussion, I believe from last show, about the potential of Ryan being Waldo of Where's Waldo / Where's Wally. Forming a stable with Carmen Sandiego.
Okay.
The Wares. Who is then joined by Lon Janey Jr., the Wolfman, thereby becoming the Wares.
Ow.
Oh, buddy, strap in.
Wait, the only way that we make that worse is you have Carmen and Waldo as the Wares, okay? And then you get you get the doctors, and then they're the Who's.
Oh no.
Yes, and then you have like two random people. They're the Whats,
I
and
think you mean the audience is the what?
yeah, the audience is the Whats. Kyoma and Trunks team up, and they're the Whens.
And then G's in the back with a flask going, how?
But we don't have.
Or why? Oh, that's great. I love stable ideas.
And you're gonna love this one too, because my next one's a tag team. It's also a stable, and it also involves Super Mario.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
No.
So, in reaction to a theoretical creation of a tag team division, is that Mario is gonna make this a family business. But that's right, it's not his real brother. It's his sworn brother from another mother. They made this oath in Peach's garden. It's the Mario Sworn Brotherhood. You hear but-up, but-up. Then it's the theme title of the Dynasty Warriors 3. Out comes Guan Yuigi.
Wait! What? What?
But in overalls, because he's been renamed as Guan Yuigi, and they have sworn the oath in Peach's garden.
No! The fact is,
Wow.
you know what the worst part of this idea is? I know the Dynasty Warriors canon. Where's the third one, though?
Oh, Zhang Ye shows up dressed as Yoshi, I guess.
Of course. And of course, let me guess. They all promise to win the exact same title at
the exact same year, the exact same month, and the exact same day.
You know what? This was similar to a really bad crossover I did with Dynasty Warriors, but you just have the Oath Brothers be the Shield.
I mean, that's basically what they are.
That's what they are. And then you have Lu Bu. You have Paul Heyman talking about Lu Bu as Brock Lesnar.
True. But on the other hand, Lu Bu changes sides so often he's more of a Big Show.
No, yeah, but the amount of backstabbing Lu Bu does is now that needs to be another one. The inner amalgamations of the three kingdoms as wrestlers.
Wait for
that would be pretty fabulous.
Yes.
There's already plenty of drama and intrigue.
Oh
yes. Just imagine Jeremy calling to Guan Yuigi, his sworn brother from another mother.
Oh my
he would kill that promo. That would be the most fire promo possibly in CWF history.
No, it can't be the most fire promo. The most fire promo has to be a character based off the Wu Kingdom.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. I know Dynasty Warriors 2. What you gonna do? Huh? Son John for life. Soon family.
So those are my two tag team ideas.
I can't believe Mario and Dynasty Warriors. That's so hard.
Oh,
It's
that's
hard.
right. There's more.
Oh, he saved
So much more.
He saved the worst for last.
Oh yeah. So, for those who are not aware, Mag West has a bit of a theme this year.
Yes,
which is Animal Crossing.
Yes, it is. It is confirmed. I'm also a department head, so please don't do an idea that will get me fired.
No. It's simple. It's just that Rachel and I were joking about the idea of what if CWF at Mag West, everyone was just an Animal Crossing character. Just independently, everyone just signs up as an Animal Crossing character because of the theme, and then we'd all get together and realize we just have an Animal Crossing show.
This is a good idea in the making.
This is a good idea. This is why I have to set up the good idea before the bad idea.
Oh no!
I got two words for you, Mr. Rossetti.
Wait, what?
It's Mr. Rossetti, but it's also the Yeti.
No, God,
Oh.
no, stop. I tap. No more. This is, oh God. Why?
There's a reason I'm at last. I'm just saying.
I hate you. Jack wins. Chat, you don't need a vote. I hate you. I hate you with the same ire of 1,000 spurned Bullet Club fanboys.
Yikes.
Wow, that's a lot of salt.
I don't think your hate's so misogynistic, G. Come on now.
Ooh. Yes, true that.
Well, that was thank you, Ryan, and fuck you, Ryan, for that question.
We will never recover.
We will never recover. So, now that we got that out of our system, this weekend, last weekend was, these past few weeks have been very great for wrestling, not so great for football.
No.
The best part about the Super Bowl weekend was halftime heat, which was amazing. Velveteen Dream actually came out dressed as a football player.
That's pretty brilliant.
It's pretty brilliant. But we wanted to use this opportunity to briefly talk about the Royal Rumble, and we want to talk about TakeOver. Let's just talk about TakeOver a little bit. Did you two watch TakeOver?
Yes, I didn't watch it live. I caught up on Hulu because we are no longer supporting the network.
And I was watching that instead of the Super Bowl because I forgot that halftime heat was a thing. But it was time well spent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All I gotta say is, I do agree with some of the consensus that it was one of the weaker takeovers, but that like having a weak takeover is like having, I'm losing an analogy here. It's pretty much saying like the worst of a really good thing. A bad Edgar Wright movie.
An underwhelming cake.
The weakest takeover is still strong AF.
Yeah. Highlights for me were the tag match. Watching the War Raiders just flatten people. They wrestle.
Yes.
They wrestle like big men, and it's amazing.
I would also like to thank Undisputed Era for selling War Raiders by basically fighting them as children would fight a full-sized adult.
Are you saying it's like that fight scene in Step Brothers?
A little bit, yes. I just love that one of them is always on top, like, trying desperately to beat about the head and shoulders of a much bigger man, and the other one just goes right for the ankles every time.
Yeah.
You know?
That was my surprise breakout match of the TakeOver. Not that it was the best match, but it was the match that surprised me the most with its quality, because the others were just like, yeah, you get the best wrestlers together to wrestle a match, and they're great. But I just enjoy War Raiders. I enjoyed that the smaller of the two picks up the larger of the two to use as a weapon very often.
Oh, don't forget the Viking entrance.
The Viking entrance, and I actually made a couple of notes for this in case you wanted to do a little bit more in depth. There is a single camera shot of I think it's Roderick Strong doing a slide kick out of the ring while the action is outside the ring. And the way it cuts, it literally looks like this foot comes from space, out of nowhere, just right up on the head.
Oh, I remember that shot.
So good.
I think I caught that one.
Ellie,
NXT camera work, underrated, very good.
Ellie, your thoughts on the match or TakeOver in general?
I thought the match was fabulous. It was the most engaged I'd been in a tag match in a long time. I thought the entrance was a little long for the War Raiders, and I kept thinking to myself, oh, I bet this shield and spear bashing thing is way cooler in person, but it just kind of sounded like talk, talk, talk instead of,
Douche. So, I'm
also,
sorry.
They started a bit off rhythm. One side started before the other, and it was
I
really
feel like they should have mic'd
adorable.
those. Yeah, I feel like they should have mic'd the shields and maybe practiced a smidge more, but it was still a really excellent effect. And this was my first exposure to the War Raiders because I'm behind on the show in general. So I was like, ooh,
yeah,
who are these guys?
Yeah, they are big Vikings who like to flatten people.
I gathered that.
And one of them does a really good cartwheel.
Oh my god.
I gotta say.
Oh no, go on. You gotta say.
Oh, I was about to start talking about one of the other matches. So
Oh,
if we're going
go
to keep
no.
talking about War
Oh
Raiders,
no, move.
please.
No, we got a lot to cover, so yes,
Okay.
please move us along.
So one thing I was going to say was that women's title match actually made me a huge fan of Bianca Belair.
Oh, yeah, I love
Absolutely.
Bianca. I gotta put my critical hat on, so excuse me. Just
Yeah.
gonna put it there. Uh, I liked it from a character standpoint. I love Bianca Belair is the closest thing you'll get to a One Piece villain. No, she fought Kairi Sane in the Mae Young Classic, and Jill, my girlfriend and I were like, "Wow, it's Luffy versus the Whip fruit," uh, and
Right?
right,
Okay.
but
So yeah.
But the thing I didn't like about the match was all the takeover matches have the why I love NXT is that the baby faces actually get to fight back and there's more chain wrestling, more sequences.
Hmm.
And this Bianca Belair match just reminded me of main roster wrestling where you have this nice go and then they get hit in the stomach and the face is like, ugh, and they just sell for like 5 minutes straight. And I'm like,
The reason I think that pops up, because you're right, it's a little bit out of the NXT's wheelhouse, is that I think part of Bianca Belair's storyline is that in storyline, not in actual talent, she is being pushed faster than perhaps she should be, and there is that inexperience and callowness to her, even with her undefeated streak. That is
Mhm.
ultimately what Shayna.
undefeated.
Yeah, I'm sorry. She clapped back at Shayna Baszler in the middle of a match. Bianca Belair is the greatest wrestler possibly of all time. It's just
I yeah, exactly. Like to me in the past, despite her undefeated streak, I had been like, it's with her hair. What is this, Melia Rage? Like I
A
just didn't
10
it
points for
didn't
Guilty
seem
Gear.
effective. It seemed like a kind of a weak gimmick considering all the other stuff she had going for her, being the S, her incredible strength, her athletic background. Like it just seemed so silly that the hair was the thing that they were pushing to like set her apart from everybody.
mhm.
But no, I get it now. I get the appeal. I'm so there for her. I thought that the match, while not the best NXT has ever shown us, was some really good character beats for both women, and I was very entertained,
Also, I hate
which is
Shayna.
all I ever asked
I
for.
hate Shayna, and I mean that in the best way possible.
Oh yes. The
I
second
want
time
I
she
want
got
Ronda
up
Rousey to be like
from,
Shayna.
I want Ronda Rousey gone,
Oh
but that's
yeah,
neither here nor there.
I'm gonna say that the best parts of the Bianca match were the hope spots.
Yes,
And just the fact that God, Belair is strong.
that's my hashtag goals for wrestling gym right there.
There is a match where she had with Dakota Kai where Bianca Belair sets up a vertical suplex, and you know how they do the rebound, like they
Hmm.
put them forward and then they do the suplex. Bianca Belair rebounded Dakota Kai off of three sides of the ring
Dang.
while holding the suplex position. She's strong, big
Insane.
strong woman.
Wrong.
Uh, Other highlights: Johnny Gargano's tights along with Champa.
Oh,
Uh,
my OTP.
so
Not really. I don't like Wolverine,
um,
but
I can't
Champa.
believe that Johnny Gargano used the X-Man 1993 cartoon font on his ass. That's some next level. Gargano and Ricochet was
Whoa, whoa, wait, wait.
exactly
What's
that.
next level? The font or his ass? Because Gargano's a good-looking man.
Okay,
Maybe
look,
both.
his ass is immaculate, but looking at his ass and then immediately my mind just like da 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 da. Bounce a quarter off that. Yeah, that's next level. Um, like Gargano and Ricochet was an outstanding technical match.
That was a PW.
Fabulous.
That was a PWG match.
Yes.
For
I
those
feel
of
like
you not in the know, PWG Pro Wrestling Gorilla, their matches are known for like crazy high spots, crazy sequences. insane near falls and just nonstop breakneck pacing, which was Gargano and Ricochet.
Absolutely. This is a me problem, but it was just like I was expecting so much from a Johnny Gargano and Ricochet match. They met that level, but there was also part of me. It's like I was kind of expecting them to like even exceed that, which is unfair. I already had the highest expectation, and they delivered.
Ricochet cleared the turnbuckle in one jump.
He did. Like I said, this is a me problem. And then of course Aleister Black is immaculate. So I have a problem with Tommaso Ciampa, and it's this. I don't know if this happened before he was evil, but it became very, very present when he became, like, evil Ciampa. When he gets real worked up and, like, sweaty and, like, in the middle of a submission hold or whatever, and those veins pop out, Tommaso Ciampa's head looks like a testicle, and it's very disturbing to me.
I knew I was going to talk about the vein because I noticed too. I didn't notice the testicle. I will try to continue to not notice the testicle. I hate you if I notice the testicle.
It's just very unfortunate, especially with that beard. On the other hand...
Oh, jeez.
No.
Oh, jeez.
No, Jack,
Worse.
You're not coming back on this episode.
Get out of here.
This is why we get all this in front of before the stuff you want to do, because if we started doing this at the end, you just end this instantly.
That is true.
But on the other hand, Evil Best Friends is my favorite gimmick in the history of all of wrestling, and we really haven't had it in a way that's very satisfying since, like, what? Kevin and Evil Sammy?
Kevin Jericho.
Kevin Jericho, of course, being also an excellent example of that.
Miz R-Truth.
To an extent.
Black Freight mentions Owens Jericho. We got that.
Yeah. Rachel's gonna need to save me from this in the
the
chat.
Iconics.
The Iconic Duo. Thank you. I was literally like, I can't remember their French name. Although it's more of like an evil marriage, but so I'm really excited about Gargano and Ciampa being Devil It Yourself. DIY, but one of those letters is now about badness.
Did you guys also...
Do Infernal Yourself, I guess.
Did you guys also notice how at the end of TakeOver, the last cut is Gargano looking at Ciampa's title, and then it just fades to black? Foreshadowing.
Yep. I mean, if their gear is any indication, then yeah, that's some pretty hardcore foreshadowing.
It is. Now, let's go ahead and move on to Royal Rumble.
Yes.
Yes, Royal Rumble, which I'm surprised Royal Rumble stood up to NXT. Normally it gets blown out of the water, but I had a lot of fun watching Royal Rumble.
Did not get to catch Royal Rumble, but I was following along in the chat when we discussed everyone getting a Royal Rumble number for both Royal Rumbles.
Yeah, so what made it more fun was Daniel made a random number generator, and we were all assigned numbers for both Rumbles. So we had a little extra vested interest, or whenever somebody got a bad wrestler, we would write in the chat, sorry, blank. I can't stop gushing with Asuka versus Lynch.
Yes.
That was just not fair.
There were a lot of...
That's not fair that they went first.
Well, I mean, we all know why they booked it in that order, right? Like, if you go on the WWE network, those two, their faces are on the thumbnail.
Yeah. No, I mean...
that would have been a headlining match anywhere else.
Oh, no. I'm saying it's not fair to the other matches.
Oh. Well, in that case, yes, I'd have to agree.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't fair to the other matches, because that thing was like, mwah. The Brock match got me all kinds of excited because I believed, but Lynch Asuka was just everything I like in wrestling.
So, full disclosure, I was working on a sewing project while I was watching, and I did not get any sewing done because it was way too entertaining. I did get a lot of sewing done during the Raw Tag Team match, and at points during the women's and men's Royal Rumbles, but
Well,
definitely not towards the end at either point.
yeah, women's and men's rumbles, typically there are going to be a lot lulls. There was definitely a lot less legends coming in for the women's side, which I appreciate just because now everybody's on the same level. Can we? I'm gonna be a little greedy. Can we just fast forward to Nia Jax taking out R-Truth?
That was great. I don't know. I'm sure G is aware, but this is, of course, not the first time a woman has been in or invaded a Rumble. China, Beth Phoenix.
Beth Phoenix.
Karma in 2020.
Yeah, awesome welfare queen, Awesome Kong.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the first time, but it was just really cool because those previous people were officially entered, but it was really neat to see how Nia Jax kind of like goes, well, if Becky did this, I could do it too. And then
it's not to minimize what Nia did. It's just that this has happened before. Those times were also super dope. So, but yeah, Nia at 30 was amazing.
Nia at 30 was fun, and I know that one of my favorite YouTube channels right now is Wrestling with Regret with Brian Zane. And he did an entire video about will there be intergender wrestling in WWE, and he talked about one of the hangups that a casual wrestler would have to get over is, would it be possible to have a woman wrestler be seen as the villain and not feel sympathy for them when they get beat up by the man? And when that question was in my mind with Nia Jax when she was in and she was just beating up everyone, and I noticed like, wow, Nia Jax is not eating any offense. How is she gonna get out? Is someone just gonna kind of do the Matador thing where she just falls over and she doesn't eat anything big? And then Dolph Ziggler super kicked her square in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, they're not pulling anything. This is great. And she's the heel because, like, she betrayed Rey Mysterio. How dare you betray San Diego? And it was great. Everything just felt equal in that brief moment. Nia got some good offense. Nia got to sell.
I gotta say, it was pretty bizarre as a feminist watching wrestling on WWE specifically and hearing the crowd cheer as Nia Jax took 3 really hard hits. Oh, and I'm like, I mean, I'm cheering too, but I'm cheering for a woman getting beaten up by 3 men. And I just had to sit there and kind of on that a little bit.
It is one of those things where you pull out, you gotta analyze your feelings.
Well, I know this is a huge issue that divides a lot of fans and people in the industry too. And I've heard that one of the main reasons WWE has moved away from that and is hesitant to move back into it is toy sales. That Mattel, I guess, who makes most of their toy-based merch, has said that they will not tolerate it. You know more about that?
Yeah, I've heard about that too, and I'm okay with intergender wrestling just because that you just bump up the match variety and you open up the possibilities, and it's a big staple on the indies. Lucha Underground,
Yes.
Lucha Underground has it, and
every King of Trios has at least one all women trios team, and they're not separated at all.
they're not separated. And when it comes to intergender wrestling, there are some questions I have, not necessarily like getting over the emotional hang-ups or equality. The question I have is, if WWE were to do intergender wrestling, would there still be a women's title belt?
Yeah, my issue with the phrase WWE intergender wrestling is not intergender wrestling, it's WWE intergender, because WWE and treating women in ways that are basic decency is a very new thing, and they're not 100% on that yet already.
Good call. Good point.
So, like, I am 100% down with watching Lucha Underground or Chikara intergender matches. I just can't imagine WWE not screwing it up by being WWE, the favorite wrestling promotion of Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yep.
Yep.
I do not want to bring that up. I only say that in reference to other things that WWE does not deal with in a way that is satisfactory or like basic level of acceptable.
Right, and a lot of the top feds, like I know that Ring of Honor gets a lot of complaints with their women's division, and then how New Japan doesn't have women in it in general. And usually, if you're looking for women's wrestling, you gotta watch Shimmer or Josie Feds. Like you gotta search it out.
Although New Japan and WWE having intergender is they're such different environments, because in New Japan you do have like the history of legit Joshi wrestling, and in WWE you have what WWE did to women's wrestling in America, and it's such a dicey comparison between the two because of the way the environment of what wrestling is in Japan and America are so different. And
it is, and I keep going back to the title, right? Because that's just the thing that's like, okay, if you have intergender wrestling, it doesn't make sense to have a women's title because now everybody's on the equal footing unless you have a specific intergender segment. But that kind of like puts it in a corner. And we already know that the main title scene is already crowded even with 2 title belts. Yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot to untangle.
yes, it is not as easy as just saying, okay, now everyone gets to fight everybody, because should it be that easy? I mean, who knows? Maybe, but it's not. And
we're just now getting a women's tag division, and it's not even big enough to have one per being shared. So yeah.
brands.
Yeah, and you also have to. And this is gonna sound like a backhanded compliment, but one of the reasons why Becky Lynch's storylines are going so well is that she doesn't have to deal with all the muck up in the men's side.
Oh, that's fair.
Like, do you want like Ziggler to cut a promo on her?
I want
liked
Ziggler
your bit
to
with John
try.
Cena.
Oh, that is true, but it's like I think one of the factors of like Lynch's rise to fame is just that story is just so pure and it's so devoid of the normal fuckery that you see happen to Strowman and Rollins and Balor and AJ and Nakamura. Like she didn't have to deal with that shit, and it only worked to her benefit.
All I really hope from this is that we do get to see Nia Jax feud with Randy Orton, and I do want to see Nia Jax like kick him while he's doing his snaky temper tantrum.
Oh,
That's all I want. Like, if nothing else comes of this, that would be enough.
I will admit that as they were staring each other down at the Rumble, I went, now kiss. They just have really good, like, in-ring tension, and I would love to see more of that form.
Okay, if Nia Jax and Randy Orton was a pairing, what would their nickname be in the fanfic world?
My name for it would be Naya. Please love yourself.
Oh, Naya,
Honey,
you
could
can do
so
better.
much better. Honey, please. Does he know what a spice is? Because I don't think so.
Oh my god.
Oh, Jack Snake. Black Freight writes Jack Snake. That's a start. All right. Now that we talked about Takeover and Royal Rumble, let's talk about nerd shit.
All right.
Oh yeah.
So we begin on Destiny Island. There is a child by the
Oh
name
gosh.
of
You
Sora.
son of a bitch.
All right, let's get even nerdier.
All right, let's preface the audience. So, Jack, how did you fall in love with wrestling?
Okay, so this is actually going to dovetail directly into talking about wrestling in a super academic way.
That's why I asked the question like that.
Tell us a story.
I am priming the pump, G. Give me some space. So, as a young child, I was as interested in wrestling as every other child in the early 2000s was. I was cognizant of the phrase Austin 316. I had the WCW versus NWO N64 game and played the bejesus out of that. Rey Mysterio forever. But I didn't actively watch it, which is good because that was during the part when I would be watching it would be when the Attitude Era was the worst. So I kind of dodged a bullet. But the way I got into it was exceedingly ass backwards. So I am a teacher by training, but not by trade, if that makes any sense. So when I went to university, I was studying for a Bachelor's of Science of Education, specifically in English. And as part of that, I really got into studying theater. I had been a theater kid in high school, but I got into it by there's a seminal text, well, lots of text by a pedagogic theorist called Paulo Freire, including a text called Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which was then used by a man named Augusto Boal to start creating a form of theater called Theater of the Oppressed, or Forum Theater, that I was starting to research into because pedagogy, which is the science of education, the study of how we teach, is a science, but it's also an art, and it is a performing art. And so from there, I got into a lot of theater in the theoretical. I know, G, you are a performer by training. I don't know how much you've gone into, the theory of not just performance, so not just talking about Stanislavski or system or any of those ideas.
Which all of those are acting methods for
yes,
if those names are what are they talking about? Those are all different. A lot of actors, if we were to talk about acting like martial arts, the Stanislavski method, the Chekhov method are all different styles of ways to approach performance and interpretation of character.
Yes. Thank you for backfilling that for me, G.
Gotcha.
But I was looking not only at that, but at dramaturgy and ways of how theater is constructed and what its purpose is. And sometime in college, I was neck deep in the epic theater tradition of Bertolt Brecht, who was a playwright and theorist from the 20s. I'm going to pull this up, and apologies preemptively to Eli if they are listening, because I'm going to butcher some German right now. So one of the key ideas of epic theater is what is called the Verfremdungseffekt, which has been yes, the Verfremdungseffekt has also been translated as the defamiliarization effect, the estrangement effect, distantation, the alienation effect, the distancing effect.
Wait a minute, I think I know one of these concepts. It's Zusammenkunft. It's basically how everything fits together.
Not quite.
Ah, damn.
That is a thing, but not specifically with Brecht.
Okay.
So with Brecht and a lot of his other contemporaries who worked in the epic theater sphere, inspired a lot by non-Western theater forms, worked of the idea of theater that has a didactic and educational purpose and how to make that a thing. So that dovetails immediately into what I was interested in with pedagogy. And their idea is I'm going to call it the alienation effect. It's not the most correct term. Most current scholarship just translates it as V effect because any translation is dicey, but that's been the accepted one for decades. Is that in order to make effective didactic theater, you need to short circuit the ability of the audience to become comfortably enmeshed in the fantasy of the world. So it's basically, to wrap it to wrestling, it is the idea of performance must be created in a way that constantly and potentially violently breaks kayfabe to prevent any sort of emotive reaction, which allows the audience to observe instead intellectually, with a distance, with space,
So
to examine the meat of the performance.
So, meaning that wrestling has to break reality enough times so that I know that it's fake, thus I'm more comfortable with viewing it?
That would be what Brecht would say. And I got into wrestling because I was so deep into Brechtian theory. I'm like, I'm so done. I need what is the opposite of the alienation effect. And that would be what is maximum emotional buy-in and a not necessarily requirement of not having an intellectual connection, but the intellectual connection only coming in as a tale from the emotional immediate connect. And that kind of drew me to wrestling, because in wrestling, we all know it's fake.
Yes.
We're not, despite what some people back in the day might have thought, we're not so stupid as to think it's not fake. But the emotive reaction is completely real.
So, you're saying that, in contrast to the previous theory, which was how work needs to present itself in an unrealistic manner, so thus we can then see it from an intellectual standpoint, wrestling is that we are so attached to the story on screen that any logical or intellectual shortcomings only come in after we had time to process our emotions.
Absolutely, which is why,
Woo! I did it. I did it, Professor.
Yes. Which comes to the point, everyone, I'm sure that we've all had times where we were like, oh man, this match, it was so great. Oh man, I loved every bit of it. And then 12 hours later, or a day, or a week later, thinking back, and it's like, yeah, well, I mean, it was exciting, but when you really, take time with it, the gilding's a little off, the blush has left, and it's, not as good as it was in the moment, and
Yeah,
I don't...
Yeah, no. It's like how in a hardcore match and the baby face is on the floor and you're just willing him to get up, and then you think about that match, and if you were there and you go, I totally would have kicked the other dude in the balls. Why didn't I just kick it? Why didn't he just kick him in the nuts right there and just beat him with a chair?
Yeah. Or my personal example is I and Rachel went to a WrestleMania Dallas, which you might remember had that spot where I think they were still the League of Nations, got beat up by a bunch of legends. And at the time, it's like, man, yes! I recognize these signifiers. They are classic to me, and I am so stoked.
Stone Cold, Mick Foley, Shawn Michaels.
And Shawn Michaels is like, I recognize these men, and they are doing the thing they are famous for, and it's so dope and exciting. And then the next week, I'm like, yo, so they just buried their heel talent for a bunch of guys, all of whom are not actively wrestling and have not actively wrestled for ages.
Oh, a similar
So
effect.
it was fan service without actual cohesion within the storyline, and it messed up the story.
It weakened the characters.
Pretty much you're
But
saying that
in the
you're
moment,
in the
because
moment.
they got beaten up by a bunch of retirees.
Yes.
yes.
This is great.
Gotcha.
But in the moment, when you are engaging entirely on the emotion, and God, is wrestling great for just hooking you up immediately into the pathos by design. You don't. Those flaws just are you skate over, and that's why I think a lot of things that don't go over, not in hindsight, but during wrestling, like during a wrestling show, the bits that don't work in the moment are those that do not inspire a reaction.
So
Fascinating.
So to you, wrestling is at its best is when it instills an emotion.
Wrestling is an art form designed to do that. I hesitate to say, like, the best wrestling is the one that inspires the most emotion. Because trust me, I popped harder than ever for, Stone Cold coming out. But at the same time, that was not good.
Oh, I meant like what you value is the emotional response wrestling can give.
It's not the only thing I value, but it's definitely something that wrestling should and does engage with as uniqueness of itself as a performing art. I don't think there is a performing art that relies as much on and therefore is designed to inspire as much pull and push from the audience and to the audience and their state than professional wrestling.
I guess
it is.
I guess the big question is what makes wrestling so good at eliciting an emotional response in its viewers?
It is the absolute destruction of any sort of and this can also backfire as well. The audience is unlike, more than perhaps, not unlike any other art form, performing art form. The audience is active and is reacted to in a moment to moment way, much more in professional wrestling. Like even the
I'm
most.
trying to think of a counterexample, and I can't think of a single thing.
When you
Yeah,
wait, a
even-
counterexample or an example of it?
And a counterexample, like any other art form, besides maybe some very specific instances of performance art.
I want to say rap battles is on that level.
Ah. Drag, harkening back to last
Talking
week's.
about the dozens.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like the structure of the rap, I feel so powerfully out of my element saying stuff. Like, I feel like the structure of a rap battle actually does create more of a barrier between the idea of audience and performer. But obviously, because a rap battle is more formalized than a wrestling match, I believe. It is, it's call and response, attack, rebut, back and forth. A wrestling match is not as neat, and that allows it to be more amorphous, not just in its structure, but also in the relationship of the parts that make that structure.
Okay. So it sounds like the three of us are on the same page, at least in terms of following your theories.
Awesome.
Perfect.
And one of the things I feel like required by academia to mention is that I called in an earlier episode in the chat, I mentioned wrestling as a prime example of low theater. and I didn't necessarily come up with that myself. Roland Barthes, the literary theorist, the guy who invented Death of the Author.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
oh, I love that.
Most-
Yep.
Hey, I love it too when people do it right, which no one does.
Yes, they have to shoot the author first. Duh.
No.
No, first you take down the author, then you strip the author of its defenses, then you kill the author.
Jeez.
And
And
not
granted,
just
they-
when you want a guilt-free excuse for enjoying things made by bad people.
Absolutely no. Because it's about text analysis. It's not about like supporting text or like the economics of it. That's
Exactly.
But Barnes did this like anthology of essays in the 50s, and one of them is all about pro wrestling and examining pro wrestling.
In the 50s?
Yes. In France. Pro wrestling. It's got roots. But his discussion of what pro wrestling is. And I think it has become more elaborated since then, because obviously we've had half a decade, 60 years now or more of, development as an art form. I keep coming back to hearing, so Colt Cabana in his podcast interviewed Dean Ambrose and had a discussion of the problem with wrestling is that it is the art and the business, and to do the art we have to do the business. And Dean Ambrose's reaction to that is like, yeah, okay. Because I don't think Dean Ambrose has a academic interest in what wrestling is. But it's such a great summation. But Barr's essay, to avoid getting even more railroaded, is a discussion of wrestling. And you can find this online. Like, you just Google Barth Wrestling Essay. There are universities that just have a free PDF of it, and you can read the whole thing. It's great. It talks about some of the bad things about wrestling as well as the good. But he talks about it as an art form. It's low art. It is art of the people, and it does not signify. It presents. That which is good is presented. It is not a metaphor. It is not gestured to. A thing is not suggested. A thing is done.
I get it. So when in total theater, if we were to look at typical theater, we would say, oh, through the analysis of the subtext, this character is the conscience of the family unit, or the conscience of the script, or the heart and soul of Blake. In wrestling, a good person is good because the commentating team goes, that's a good person.
And because they do the good person thing.
They do the good person thing.
Bar's analysis of what the wrestling narrative is the narrative of justice. Either it is justice that is engaged, or justice that is stifled and denied until it cannot be denied any further. The heel evades and may occasionally triumph, but justice will not be stopped, only temporarily thwarted.
And this is
which
why...
is why it as a theater of the people, it's the justice we cannot obtain in our lives simply by the fact that life is complicated and messy and it is not fair. But within 4 walls made of ropes and 2 men wearing underwear pretending to punch each other, everything that is complicated, that is signified or suggested, does not exist. There is only the thing, not the thing that is suggested. So we can watch and we can experience cathartically justice that we may not experience in our own lives happen because the right beats the wrong.
Holy crap.
When we talk about hard times, the Hard Times promo connects literally every possible ill befalling society to the fact that Ric Flair has too much money and does not deserve his belt. And on the face, that's insane. Ric Flair has nothing to do about the fact that you're given a boot on the butt and a watch and replaced by a computer. But within the world of this wrestling, they can be forced to be the same thing and then have the bejesus beat out of them by Dusty Rhodes. And you can win because you are the suggested thing that Dusty Rhodes in that ring is.
It's the equivalent to the yes movement.
Absolutely, the yes movement as well.
You can beat up your boss and you won't get fired because your boss took the bait and got into the ring with you. And so, by the rules of this special world, you can beat up your boss.
Yes.
Been something I've enjoyed and remarked upon.
Now,
I think it
also
just
talks about.
I just want to say that it is absolutely mind-blowing that that you have helped me come to the conclusion that wrestling is one of the only forms of theater storytelling that has zero subtext.
Oh,
It is all text.
it is. Well, there is.
Well, there's
some-
metatext.
There is
That's-
metatext, but
yes,
it's
that's
just
a better way to put it. There is text and metatext, but there is not purposeful subtext. It is not an art of subtlety. It is, descending from commedia, and we can talk about that in a second. I want to visit one other point of Barrett's essay, which points out that is, this lack of nuance or subtext, and this appeal to the ultimate of us, the baseline, the people, low art, can also be bad because the lowest, basest lack of subtext includes things like xenophobia and homophobia and fear of the other. Because
Jack, before you go on, I just think we haven't done this, and we should have done this earlier. Can you explain the difference between high art and low art?
not effectively, because I don't think there's a good way to define it.
Or just at least the purpose of low art in terms.
So the idea of low art, as described within this essay, which is where I'm kind of drawing it, is that it is art determined to. It's a term. It's hard to define. Reach out and not rely on any sort of. I don't want to say subtlety, but any sort of artifice or I don't want to just say it's art for the common people, but that's a good working rule of thumb definition. It's art that is designed to be consumed readily, wherein you do not need to, in order to get the effect of the art, need to engage in depth of study.
I think that's a good way.
You don't need to know how to critique it. You don't need an academic background in art. There's no added context. It is what it is, and its message is for everyone.
Yeah, like if I were to go to watch no theater or kabuki, it would be a good idea for me to learn some visual signifiers of things.
Yes.
Not to mention Japanese.
True. I just wanted to make that distinction because whenever something is compared to as low, it's kind of has a negative connotation. When we're using low, it's more of an approachability or a theoretical bar that you need to clear to appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's not meant to be an inferior art form. It's merely meant to be an art form of, I don't want to say ease of palatability, but because low art can be appreciated in depth, can be critiqued and examined, and has often lots of very rich detail, but that is not necessary on the face of it. As opposed to, I would say, high art, where there is only that which can be dug up, perhaps is the definition there.
So, back to the trappings of low art, homophobia, sexism.
Xenophobia. Specifically, Bowers talks about the signifier of the what is a heel in America because of their political issues. They are often Russian and definitely communist. Whereas in France, they're just sort of exemplary of the low like, he describes one specific heel as this slovenly, pale, sexless thing, which puts me in mind of unfortunate bits from Goldust's early career.
Oh.
Yeah, and let's not forget that one of the most prolific heels of early wrestling was Gorgeous George, and he was a bad person because he's a beautiful man who talked about being beautiful.
And so there is a danger in that. One that, since you did mention before we started this podcast, we were going to talk. You wanted to touch on the elaborate entrance of Chad Deity,
Yes,
and
there.
you can't discuss that without discussing the issues of theater and wrestling in particular, and race, because that's the play.
So let's talk about Chad Deity a little bit more.
Okay.
So Chad Deity is this. I only have tertiary knowledge. Is a actual live theater show
Yes. It is a
about
piece of theater,
piece of
Pulitzer Prize nominated.
well,
About
about a pro wrestler, and a lot of theater companies that uh, do this show, they are not content with just having it on a stage. They will build a ring. They will build an entrance ramp. They will. They make sure to get their actors who are physically fit, and there will be wrestling segments, and
Yes.
this is where Jack takes it
This
away.
is all, in fact, all that is like required staging. I own a copy of the Samuel French script for Chad Deity. It's great. The author Christopher Diaz is a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. Not for Chad Deity, was nominated but didn't win. He won in 2011 for a different play, whose name is slipping my mind. He was also a story editor on Glow, so
Oh.
That's like the third time we've referenced Glow. It's great.
Glow, it connects
know,
everything.
It makes sense too, because as I was trying to prepare for this evening's podcast and went on YouTube to try to watch a bunch of clips of this, which there is no,
Mm-hmm.
start to finish bootleg available on YouTube.
Which it should be.
Better or for worse, that's just how it is. So, people had adapted it for shorter performances for student showcases, performed it as like a two-man show often. And then I watched some productions like backstage video content. Um, the first thought that came to my mind was, oh, it's like on Glow, how oh, you're brown, so you're going to be the Muslim terrorist, and you're black, so you're going to be the welfare queen. It all falls into place now. Everything makes sense.
Yes, Christopher Diaz's all of his plays deal with issues of race. Well, I don't want to say all of them, but all of them that I'm aware of deal with issues of race and the Latinx experience in America. Just to give a quick plot summary of um, Chad Deity, our main character is a wrestler by the name of Mace, is his wrestling name, uh, who was very, very good at his job, which is why he's a jobber. Because in pro wrestling, when you're really, really, really good at your job, you're really, really, really good at making the other guy look like he's kicking your ass.
Sami Zayn.
And there's a discussion with Chad Deity, who is African American. He is outstanding on the mic. He is overflowing with charisma. He's got a musculature that makes women and men weep. He can't wrestle for shit, but he is good enough to do the power bomb. So he's got the Hogan technique of one punch, two punch, three punch, power bomb, pin him, and we're done. But he's not a Hulk Hogan character. Like there are bits that keep coming in where Chad Deity is also shown that he is also eating. He's like being forced to eat shit for the racist white people who run wrestling. And even for all of his success, he's still beholden to this bullshit, whether he likes it or not. Mace is from, I think, Red Hook in New York. And his brothers keep playing basketball with this kid who's Indian, speaks like 7 languages, 9 if he's trying to talk a woman into going out with him. And is just this showboat, and Mace like meets him as they're playing basketball, and he's like, my god, this guy's the complete package. He could be the next guy. And he brings him in, and they give him a Muslim terrorist gimmick.
Of
Oh,
course,
no.
of
Of
course.
course, they literally mention the WWE 2003 runs. Like, but before intermission, they mention, oh god, what was his full name?
Muhammad Hassan.
They mention Muhammad Hassan. Google him, and then after the intermission, they go Muhammad Hassan, and I know who that is now because you Google them on your phones in intermission.
Ah.
And but there's also stuff like there's stuff like Latin people don't watch wrestling is a line a character tries to say in that show. It's like, I want to say Lucha Libre. I want to say Puerto Rico. I don't say anything because I need a paycheck. And it just kind of escalates from there. Mace has to become like this weird Pancho Villa, Santa Ana character. Because of course he does. He's not Mexican. But it's all the same, right?
It's not. So Jack, you've seen the show live, right?
I have. In fact, I think we drove 2.5 hours to a college that was putting it on just to watch the show.
So what was your take on it? As someone who studied the theory, and this is probably one of the very few. As someone who's watched wrestling with a theater lens, this is the first time wrestling is brought into the theater world. And I guess it's more like, what were the elements in wrestling that were always there that didn't even need to be altered for it to work in theater? Did that question make sense?
Yes.
Thank you.
A promo is a soliloquy. That's like off the cuff immediately. Like, these characters, most of the play is based on monologue, but it's paced in a way that it's like a wrestling promo. But it's also paced in a way that it's like a Spalding Gray performance. It's just Spalding Gray, swimming to Cambodia. He's famous for his one-man shows. The beat and the interaction has always been there in theater. It's just emphasized more in wrestling. The issue I ran into in watching, instead of it being theater in a wrestling space, it's wrestling in a theater space, is the show does its best. It hauls so much water from the well to get the audience to react and cheer and boo and be in the wrestling crowd space, but you're still in a black box theater, and most of the people that were at the performance weren't able to buy in a way that let them cheer and jeer and boo and go, this is awesome, clap,
Oh, that's the best part, right, Ellie?
Right?
I was going to say, it sounds like they needed a like all of our CWF shows do, explaining to the audience how they're supposed to engage with the material.
That happened. There's literally a character who only exists to come out and, like, give a promo about how you react to promos.
No kidding.
Yes, but the problem with that is,
because it's
and I experienced this too, is watching this, the parts that become a wrestling match flow in and out of this main character's, like, really deep, heartfelt discussion of how it hurts to love wrestling so much and having to demean and diminish himself so much to become, to be able to do the things he loves, and it's a deep and emotional, and it just doesn't feel real. It doesn't. There's not enough separation, but on purpose, that this flows in from that to the wrestling and wrestling to that. That it doesn't feel right to then go, on a 2 count, 2! Because on that 2 count, he may then start talking about his grandfather, and how his grandfather talks to him about how, at 6 years old, watching wrestling on the television, he's already found the one thing he loves, and you just kind of feel like an asshole for cheering.
Yeah, because I get it, because you have to kill your engine. You can't let yourself get too worked up in the moment to yell something, because you run the risk of shouting over something else.
Yes.
There's the added
And-
complication, I would say, of this being. Would you say, Jack, that this is wrestling first or theater first?
It is theater first. Absolutely. It takes place in a wrestling ring. Actual wrestling moves are done. In fact, in the Samuel French, there is a playwright's note that stage combat training is insufficient. You will need someone to teach your actors how to safely perform pro wrestling.
Gotcha. But that said, because it is theater first, the audience, we can assume, is maybe more familiar with the theater experience, being quiet, clapping at the end of songs if there are any, things like that. That seems strictly counter to wrestling experience.
Absolutely. And I think they try to bridge that gap, but I think part of it is the nature of the performance is not wrestling enough for that gap bridging to truly connect.
That makes sense.
Right.
Or it might just be the performance I saw, because I know that there have been some done in Chicago. One was in Sacramento in 2013 that were more, because this was a college theater department performance. It was not a extravagant production of it.
Thanks for your insight on that. I hope we could see this soon. It sounds it sounds like something up our alley, and a lot of people who do go to CWF, because CWF is totally known for its technical wrestling prowess.
Oh yes.
Yes.
So much real wrestling.
So much real wrestling it's up their alley. And I actually wanted to bring up an interesting topic for tonight, if I may.
Of course.
Because I know, Jack, that you're really big on the theory of wrestling and the theory of theater, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And because I want to take it a little bit to the mechanics of wrestling. And the more I studied wrestling, studied wrestling as in from a viewership standpoint, not actually studying wrestling. And when I became a performance coach for acting, I noticed that a lot of the tropes in wrestling, a lot of stuff in wrestling that we take for granted, are there for functionality as well as entertainment. So I'll give an example, right? Okay? Here's an example. Wrestler pulls out a foreign object, a large one, a chair, a cane. What's the first thing they do with the cane or the chair?
They smack the ground with it?
Exactly. They smack the ground with it. Right?
Which I guess creates noise. It draws everyone's attention with the motion.
It does, but it also shows the potential danger of the object. I'm going to take a quick side trip. I teach humorous interpretation and duo interpretation, which requires the performer to perform a 10-minute segment of published work without the aid of props or music or costumes. So there's a lot of miming and pantomiming. And one of the critiques I have is, let's say we're doing a piece and a character pulls out a gun, right? I always tell my students there's this one rule, and I learned this because of wrestling. You have to introduce the object before you interact with the object. So you can't just, get your hand out of your pocket, hold an invisible gun, and then pull the trigger. You have to cock the gun. That way, the audience already knows that there's a gun in the hand, and that's the same. That's the same thing with chairs and foreign objects. It's a way to show that they're real and that they're dangerous, so that it builds up anticipation. So when someone gets hit, you're like, "Oh, I did not want that to happen." You get that reaction.
It's the anticipatory element.
Yeah, there's the anticipatory element. There's stuff like that, or how every wrestling punch is a haymaker. That's done. Because if you're in a real fight like in MMA, you're going to throw quick jabs. You're not going to draw your fist back. But you do it, one, because you want to look like a big, strong wrestler. But two, it's so the person in the back of the room sees the punch.
Yeah.
So that's functionality playing into the storytelling. Same with selling when somebody gets hit. In real life, if you get hit, you want to react as little as possible. Yeah, well, you try not to crumple. Because if you crumple, you're dead. So you kind of do one of those like half crumples, like, and then you stay on your feet, because the moment you drop, you could get hurt. But in wrestling, they do the over exaggerated gut, like, whoo, so that conveys the fact that they're hit.
Or if you're Dolph Ziggler, you get touched and then start flying out of the ring as though punted by the boot of God.
Oh.
Right.
See, I was thinking, when you actually are knocked back, you don't then writhe on the floor in pain. You usually fall if you've been attacked,
Right. So what I'm trying to say, Black Frank is asking, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that these tropes in wrestling, like nobody questions why the wrestler hits the object on the floor, or nobody questions why the wrestler's always throwing their fists back to, like, reaching back to Nebraska. We just accept it. But they have very functional storytelling elements that help can both convey the message of the choreography, as well as the simple fact that it just makes everything seem more powerful.
They are performers doing a performance, and they are doing things to make the performance work.
Thank you.
In addition to being narratively important.
And, it got into my mind where I used to train in Taekwondo in college.
Mm-hmm.
And almost every martial arts tournament, they'll always have the halftime segment where they have, like, the really good fighter, and they'll fight a bunch of people, right, to just, like, entertain the crowd. And I was never impressed with those segments outside of pure athleticism standpoint. And I realized why. Because, they're doing the moves, and, the people are selling, and they're selling real good. But there was no sound. And that's why a lot of masquerade skits, when they have a fight scene, they don't look impressive to you, because there's no sound.
And you can't pre-record and synchronize sound unless you are just completely committed to exact timing, and
or if you're the freaking
nothing goes wrong ever.
Or if you're the freaking Korean World Cosplay Summit team.
Is this in reference to a specific skit?
Yeah, they did a Degree Man skit where they had a fight scene, and their choreography was synchronized to an audio track with sound effects.
Good Lord.
Ow. Right,
but sound. I never realized how important sound was in a fight scene until I saw pro wrestling. Because, this is a true fact. The human brain processes sound faster than sight. Did you know that?
I believe it.
Yeah, that's why in fighting games, the overhead attack is the attack that you do standing that hits a crouching opponent. The sound is delayed. That way it's more likely to hit. So even though you can't process the fist going near the face, it doesn't matter that. If you hear the sound and this person going back, you're like, oh, that guy got hit in the face. A lot of people go, nobody stomps their feet while punching. Yeah, duh.
But gotta make a sound somehow.
You gotta make the sound. And there's also the construction of the ring. I didn't know how loud the ring was until I saw wrestling live.
Same.
Yeah, ditto.
Ditto, like, the body slam. The body slam looks almost gentle on TV, but you watch it live, like, oh god, he's dead.
Or
By the way, G,
watching.
how are we doing on time?
We could we're at 9. We could hit another topic, but I just wanted to talk about the mechanics real quick.
Oh,
I-
for
I-
sure.
Do have a topic I kind of want to hit on
All
in
right.
relation actually to the mechanics of wrestling, but I also want to make a slight segue because we're talking about mechanics and also teaching performance. I ran into an image that I've fallen in love with, and I want to like somehow include in our next CWF like discussion panel, not the actual CWF show, but the I forget what we actually call.
We originally
They,
called it CWF Tips from the Pros, but I've submitted a new title just because that seems a little bit too niche. It's
Yeah.
character acting through pro wrestling, I think is the name, or something close to it.
And it's an image from a Nintendo Power of Charles Martinet recording lines for Mario Party 5, but it's an image of 4 pictures of Charles Martinet doing a voice for Mario and Luigi and Wario and Waluigi because he has all of them, and his physicality in each image is 100% different. He's like 4 different people, and it's such a good, powerful image showing how the change of your physicality leads to a change in your performance and your vocality.
Hey, that sounds a little similar to the
I
theory.
have it. I have it saved on my phone. I'm gonna put it in the group chat sometime, probably.
PWO for Life writes Ric Flair and Billy Gunn, Mr. Ass, would sell their hits as they foolishly fall down in the ring. Which part of that is the Ric Flair flop.
Yes. Speaking of,
oh yeah, I was
go
like,
ahead, Jake.
Ellie, you know about the Ric Flair flop?
Vaguely.
Charlotte does it too, where Ric Flair will sell a hit where he kind of looks like he's out on his feet, and then he just falls face first, like something
Yes.
out of a silent movie, and it's great because we take that bump for granted because like, oh, that's the Ric Flair thing, but it also, look at the storytelling mechanics of that. It's pretty much saying that he got hit so hard that his body didn't know to fall down until it was too late.
Yes, that brain-body disconnect. It's really well communicated through that particular bump.
Yes. As opposed to a honky tonk man bump. Which
Okay, that you're definitely going to have to explain
If
to
you
me.
have not seen Rachel give the honky tonk man bump, it is a work of genius. A honky tonk man bump is where you take a hit and then you just basically slowly lower yourself down onto your side because the honky tonk man is infamous for not being able to sell anything ever.
Oh my god, so you gently lower yourself to the floor?
Yes, Rachel does the best impersonation of it.
Was this for strikes or did he do it for actual moves too, like slams?
It's for strikes mostly, but it's a sort of an ongoing joke just because the Honky Tonk Man, for all of his qualities, selling for his opponent was not one of them. Not from a lack of selling, but from mostly, I guess, a lack of ability. But speaking of selling, I wanted to touch on one other theater connection to wrestling.
All right, and this will be the last one. That way we can let our viewers go.
And that's the fact that wrestling is for clowns.
Yes, clowning.
Wrestling is clowning. Wrestling is mime. So I'm going to describe something. You need to tell me if this is wrestling or something else. All right. Two performers are entering in to do a performance with a determined set of with a determined storyline and a determined ending.
Wrestling.
There are multiple beats they need to hit, but between these beats, they fill in with well-practiced and refined stock of moves and techniques strung together semi-improv to lead from one spot to the next.
Wait.
Definitely sounds like wrestling to me.
I'm gonna say wrestling. I'm gonna say wrestling.
That is wrestling. That's also how you make a clown routine.
Really?
Yes, a clown routine is a storyline with a determined, eventuality. We know what's going to happen at the end of the clown routine. Someone is going to sit on the pie, someone is going to fall off the ladder, yada, yada, yada. And there are, the beats, the important, hard jokes that are, planned out and set up for specially propped, etc. But between those beats, the actions of clowning rely on a sort of rehearsed routines that clowns can draw on to connect one beat to the next. They call it business. And that's also how you wrestle. You have your spots, you have your big moves, and between those you have all your transitional stuff. And it's semi-improv, and you're relying on yourself and your partner to be up enough and practiced enough that they can string these together.
In addition,
And then
I would also say, in addition, I would assume that the rhythm, cadence, and intensity of each stunt is heavily dictated by how receptive the audience is to certain beats.
Absolutely. And it's also extremely physically demanding. Clowning and it's because again I mention wrestling having roots in commedia dell'arte, which is an Italian and French art form of kind of stock characters acting out semi-improv storylines with specific beats. It's also one of the origins of modern clown.
Wow.
Fabulous.
That is fabulous.
It's also, unlike AJ Styles says, wrestling is political, so is commedia. It was in fact banned for 100 years in Italy during Napoleon's occupation because people would just get in commedia masks and do a commedia performance, which would basically be them on stage dressed up like a clown saying, "Benolian Bonaparte, retire, bitch!" And turns out that's a great way to get your art form outlawed. But it's the physicality and the semi-improvisational nature of it and the archetypal nature of it. Wrestling, clowning come from the same roots. Mime. It's all together. I could hear Rachel laughing from the next room over, so I know how long our delay is, because she's laughing at that retirement joke.
Oh, I know. And then, I know. We could even make this more elaborate. There's a huge similarity between clowning, theater, wrestling, drag, and magic.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
They all have their own form of kayfabe.
Yes. And with that, I hope our viewers can go ahead and ace the next theater/wrestling quiz in their lifetime, thanks to our own in-house theater expert, Jack.
Yes,
feel free to cite me in the essay section. Do we have a question for next session?
All right.
Do you have an idea for one?
Actually, yes. This one allows us to get all emotionally vulnerable.
Ooh.
My favorite kind of vulnerable.
I would say next week, or next episode, will be which babyface in all of wrestling exemplifies the traits that you wish you could be.
Oh.
And
it's got to be a babyface?
Well, no, a wrestler has played a babyface. So
Well, there goes Damien Sandow. Damn it.
But I would say that, since in light of Jack's analysis about low art with its lack of signifiers, the wrestler that best exemplifies the traits that you want or you wish you could be, or or another way to say it is your ideal. How's that for a question?
It's real good.
I'm really glad we've got 2 weeks to think about it.
Sorry you can't be on that one, Jack.
Oh no. I'll have to just be in chat.
You'll just have to be chat. But I know we ran a little long, but the conversation was so fascinating I didn't want to cut it off. So I want to thank you, Jack. Want to thank you,
Never a
Jack.
problem. Can't wait for you to have me back where we will discuss Kingdom Hearts lore. It will happen.
No, we're going to talk. It's not going to be Kingdom Hearts. It's going to be the 3 kingdoms.
What if I
Another
told you?
thing I don't fully understand,
Sorry.
but can appreciate the depth of the folklore.
See, if this were a sketch, you would be the audience surrogate.
We could just have a podcast where I just scream about how angry Rent and Hamilton make me for 2.5 hours. How about that?
No, don't.
Oh,
you.
yeah, we're musicals for the people, but no one can afford to see us.
Hamilton, a musical for the people about Alexander Hamilton, the one man most responsible about us getting fucked by banks for 200 damn years? What is wrong with America? So yeah, that for 2.5 hours. Next time you invite me over, keep that in mind when you're doing the cast list.
Apologies to Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I mean, you do good songs, my dude, but check your sources better.
Jack has a platform, and you could say that they weren't going to throw away their shot.
No.
Okay. With that, we'd like to thank you. We want to thank everybody in the green room for chatting along with us and listening along. This was probably our most theoretical episode, and we can all thank Jack for that. This is CWF Backstage Pass. I'm G.
And I'm Ellie, and have a good night until next time.
Until next time.